When the millionaire entered her apartment at 3 a.m., she freaked out, believing he was a burglar. The clock struck 3, a chilling hour when shadows stretched and whispers roamed. Inside her cramped apartment, Maya's heart raced. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the creak of her old wood floors. Suddenly, the handle rattled. Cold dread washed over her, turning her palms clammy. This wasn't just anyone. This was the infamous billionaire, Blake Foster. She'd seen his face on every magazine, his scowl a stark contrast to the flashy suits. What could he want at this hour? When the door swung open, it revealed him, bathed in pitch-black shadows. He looked frantic, eyes wide, chest heaving. He stood there as if he'd witnessed a ghost. Maya's instinct screamed. Was this a robbery? A cruel joke? In a flash, she scrambled behind her couch. Her mind raced with wild scenarios. Maybe he was a criminal in disguise, or worse, planning something sinister. The adrenaline coursed through her veins, every muscle tense and ready to bolt. We need to talk. Blake's voice sliced through the heavy air. It echoed like a gunshot in her mind, causing her to shiver. The vulnerability in his voice surprised her. What did he want that was worth this risk? Thoughts collided within her: fear, curiosity, disbelief. Almost instinctively, she thought of the hefty sum in her savings account. Was he after money? Then, in the abyss of uncertainty, she heard a soft thud from behind him. Panic ignited anew. Who else was there? Who had followed him? Maya's heart pounded, a rapid tattoo against her ribcage. Just as she gathered herself to confront him, the sound of heavy footsteps approached. The world outside her apartment felt so distant, like an undercurrent swirling beneath the surface. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. A moment hung between them, heavy with unspoken words. Blake's expression shifted, shadowed with urgency. Maya, it's not what you think, he pleaded, stepping closer. That vulnerability broke through her fear momentarily, but dread still loomed. She felt stuck, like a moth caught in the web of a deceitful spider. What was going on? Just as she opened her mouth, the door behind Blake burst open. A tall figure with menacing eyes entered. The air thickened with tension. Was he a friend or foe? Maya's pulse raced. She had to decide: fight or flight. Her apartment felt smaller, walls closing in. What secrets lay hidden in this peculiar visit? As her breath quickened, she braced herself for what was about to unfold. The night had turned into a tangled web of terror and intrigue, and there was no turning back. Maya's breath caught in her throat as the tall figure moved forward, eyes reflecting a dangerous glimmer. The shadowed man towered over Blake, who stood there like a deer caught in headlights. Maya felt her stomach drop. There was no way she could let this be her last night, her last breath. Get out! The newcomer barked, his voice like gravel, sharp and unwelcome. Blake's gaze darted between Maya and the imposing figure, desperation etching deeper lines into his face. No, listen to me, Blake shouted, stepping protectively in front of her, as if shielding her from whatever threat loomed. The urgency in his tone sent a wave of confusion crashing over her. Why was he protecting her? Did he know this man? Stay out of this, Blake. The intruder growled, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. Maya's instincts kicked in, each word escalating the fiery dread that clawed at her insides. Questions spiraled. Why was Blake here? Who was this man? What danger had she unintentionally stumbled into? As the tension coiled tighter, Blake took a step forward, his chest heaving, each breath a battle. You don't understand, he pleaded again, eyes pleading. If they find us, what do you mean, they? Maya interjected, voice shaky and filled with mounting panic. She couldn't simply remain a silent witness anymore. Her heart pounded like thunder. If Blake was in danger, then she was too. The dark figure smirked, a cruel twist of his lips, as if he reveled in their fear. You want to protect her? Think she'll save you from the wreck you've caused? He stepped closer, and Maya could smell the metal of his threat, the tension coating the air like smoke. Enough, Blake shouted, cutting through the menacing silence. You don't have to do this. Just leave her out of it. His voice trembled, but there was strength woven into his words. Maya could see the vulnerability and fear flickering in his eyes. The man's gaze flicked back to Maya, those piercing eyes assessing, calculating. It's already too late for that. He turned back to Blake, muscles tensing like coiling springs. You brought her into this, and now they'll come for her, too. You think you can hide? They will find you. Maya's heart felt like it was going to burst. Who? Who will find us? She swallowed, a lump forming in her throat. Blake reached for her hand, pulling her slightly behind him, instinctually guarding her. Maya, you need to trust me. I can't explain everything right now. Before he could finish, the harsh sound of sirens pierced through the quiet night, echoing ominously beyond the walls of her apartment. The intruder's expression twisted into one of cold rage. He turned quickly, glancing toward the door as if contemplating his escape. They're here, he hissed. You've got to move, Blake. Now. And don't trust her. With that, he lunged toward Blake, but in that split second, Maya reacted. It was all instinct. She lunged for the nearest object, the corner of a framed photo, and swung it hard at the intruder. The frame connected with a sickening thud, sending him stumbling back. Get down, Blake shouted, his voice booming through her shock. As Maya crouched, she could see the panic on Blake's face transform into something fierce. In the dim light of her apartment, she understood now. There was something far more sinister at play. Blake couldn't just be a billionaire caught in a social scandal. Then came the pounding on her door and a shout. Maya, open up. Her heart raced as she recognized the voice. Agent DeMarco, her old friend, now an FBI agent. But every second felt precious and urgent. Time was running out. Could she trust Blake? Would DeMarco really help? Or was he part of the web of chaos? Or had she unwittingly swung into a trap? As uncertainty boiled around her like a tempest, the door rattled again, this time with a force that promised to shatter everything she knew. What was she going to do? With her mind racing, she turned to Blake. In the eye of the storm swirling around them, a choice loomed in her heart. Fight for the truth, or flee into the darkness. The unimaginable awaited just beyond the door, and every instinct screamed that it was only the beginning. Maya's breath quickened, a chorus of sirens blaring outside clashing violently with the pounding at her door. Adrenaline surged through her veins, propelling her thoughts in chaotic directions. Blake was right in front of her, but the ominous figure loomed like a shadow behind him, dangerous and wild. Blake, she whispered, the panic edging her voice. What do we do? We have to get out of here. His eyes darted to the door, then back at the intruder, who was regaining his composure. We can't let him catch us. The intruder chuckled darkly, a sound that churned her stomach. Where do you think you'll go exactly? They're everywhere, Blake. You can't outrun the truth. Before she could grasp the enormity of his words, the door splintered. Agent DeMarco's powerful voice broke through the chaos. Maya, open up. FBI. The intruder closed the distance, grabbing for Blake, but the billionaire ducked just in time. Maya could feel the panic rising like a tidal wave, her body frozen in place. Everything within her screamed to save Blake, but the world felt like it was closing in like an iron cage. Stay behind me, Blake yelled, positioning himself with animalistic instinct between her and the man. The tension filled the room, thick and suffocating as they seemed suspended in time. Maya, you need to trust me. Open the door. DeMarco's voice rang out again, urgent and commanding. The hollow weight of betrayal pressed down on her. How could she be sure DeMarco really was there to help? What if he was part of this twisted game? What if they both were? Her thoughts swirled like a dust storm. Do it. Blake pushed urgently now. Maya moved instinctively towards the door, her heart drumming loudly in her ears. As she reached to unlock it, she glanced back at Blake. His face was a mask of determination, but fear lurked in the corners of his eyes. It drew her to him, rooting her to the spot. But the intruder wasn't patient. He lunged again, this time with a primal roar that sent shockwaves through the air. Maya's instincts kicked in once more. She twisted back around and hammered on the door's handle, pushing her shoulder against it. Open. Now, DeMarco shouted, urgency now tinged with a note of warning. The doorframe creaked, begged against the violent blows of the intruder. With one final push, the door burst open, swinging wide to reveal Agent DeMarco, gun drawn, flanked by 2 officers. "Maya," DeMarco shouted, quickly taking in the chaotic scene. "Get back." He surged forward, aiming his weapon at the intruder, who shot a baleful glance at the agents now spilling into the room. Then everything exploded. The intruder twisted, swinging a fist towards Blake, and making contact just as DeMarco shouted for backup. Time seemed to slow as the punch landed, turning Blake's body sideways. Maya screamed, rushing to him instinctively as the officers closed in, their movements swift and practiced. "Get her out." DeMarco barked at his team, eyes raking over Maya as if gauging her response. She could see the fear in Blake's eyes as he struggled against the hulking intruder. "Stop," she cried, reaching for Blake, but another agent grabbed her shoulder, trying to pull her back. "Maya now," DeMarco ordered, urgency radiating from him, but her heart was on fire. A blurring confusion danced in her mind. Would she flee with DeMarco, or stay with Blake, who was at the center of this chaos? The conflict tore through her. Before she could make a choice, the intruder let out a roar and broke free from the officers. In an explosive moment of chaos, he lunged for Maya's direction, eyes wild, as her breath caught in her throat. "Run," Blake shouted, grappling with the hulking man as if their lives depended on it. Maya's heart pounded. But where was she supposed to go, and who could she trust now? As she stood frozen, watching the storm of bodies and chaos unfolding in front of her, a realization dawned. This wasn't just about Blake anymore. It was about survival. In that moment, she felt the ground shift beneath her feet, and her world teetered on the precipice of danger. Would she take the leap into the unknown or cling to the wreckage of certainty she once knew? Uncertainty clawed at her soul as a new shadow crept into the room, hinting at darker truths lurking just out of sight. The night was far from over, and far more secrets awaited in the darkness. What was really at stake? What were they all hiding from her? Maya's instincts screamed for her to move, but her feet felt glued to the ground. The chaos unfolded in front of her like a nightmarish scene playing out in slow motion. Blake was fighting for his life, a frantic blur of limbs and desperate gasps filling the air. The sound of fists colliding with flesh was horrifying, punctuated by shouts from the agents. Suddenly, DeMarco stepped forward, weapon raised. "Get him down. Now." His voice pierced through the frantic noises, a command dripping with authority. 2 agents jumped in, trying to wrestle the intruder back, but he was a raging bull, thrashing violently as they struggled to contain him. Maya's heart was in her throat. Shadows flickered in the corners of the room. She could feel them closing in, and the weight of impossibility wrapped tightly around her chest. "Blake," she called, breaking through the disarray. She needed to reach him. She convinced herself it was the fear of losing him that drove her forward. One of the agents caught her wrist, yanking her back. "Get her out of here," he shouted to DeMarco, who was still focused on the writhing intruder. "No, I need to help him," Maya yelled, fighting against their grip, but her protests fell on deaf ears. The intruder, still struggling against the agents, caught sight of Maya. His eyes glinted with something dark, primal, a predator spotting its prey. He lunged again, and this time, luck was not on her side. "Maya, duck." Blake's voice surged through her panic just in time. She dropped to the floor, barely avoiding the flailing fist that collided with another agent, knocking him to the ground. The chaos escalated. The sliding door to her apartment was open, and the sound of the sirens outside became a maddening soundtrack to the unfolding horror. "Backup is on the way," DeMarco yelled over the commotion, his face hardened into a mask of focus and determination. "Where's the backup?" Maya thought frantically. She could feel her heart pounding in her ears as she clung to the idea that they would arrive in time. Blake managed to throw the intruder off him, staggering but not giving in. He looked fierce, his lips pressed into a grim line, as he moved to shield Maya. "Stay close," he shouted, breathing hard, blood trickling down his temple. The intruder didn't seem fazed by the arrival of officers. With renewed rage, he surged toward Maya again, eyes wild. What did he want from her? Before she had a chance to scream, Blake leaped in between them, throwing himself into the fray once more. Their eyes locked. Raw fear and desperate determination raced between them. A bond forged in fire, even as danger swirled around them. Time warped as she witnessed the struggle. It felt like a trap closing around them, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this went deeper than just a fight in her apartment. "What truth are you hiding?" she shouted, desperate for answers. "Everything." The intruder spat, momentarily distracted by her words. "You think you know him? You have no idea the game he is playing." The revelation sent icy fingers creeping down her spine. Was Blake not the man she thought he was? Before she could process this new, shocking thought, DeMarco shouted, "We're losing control. Someone get a taser." She knew time was running out. She balled her hands into fists, her breathing rapid. "Get down," she screamed suddenly as a crash echoed from the kitchen, reverberating through her entire apartment. A second intruder emerged, and panic surged again. This wasn't just a fight now. It was a fight for survival. "Maya." Blake's voice cut through the panic, filled with urgency. "You have to trust me. We can't stay here." But could she trust anyone anymore? The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on her, threatening to crush her very spirit. Everything teetered on the edge. Would she find strength when it mattered most? Or take a gamble with someone who might betray her? "Run now," DeMarco yelled, pulling her back toward the door. But in the dimness of the room, shadows stirred and dread crept in, whispering unanswered questions into her ear. What if escaping just led her further into a web of secrets? As Blake struggled to fend off the second intruder, she found herself caught in a maelstrom of fear and doubt, knowing there was no turning back. What had she stepped into? Who, or what, would she find on the other side? Time was slipping, and the darkness loomed larger than ever. Maya's pulse thundered in her ears as she wrestled with the decision: run or stay. The chaos spun around her like a cyclone, the sound of breaking glass and distant sirens clawing at her sanity. Blake was locked in a fierce struggle with the second intruder, whose eyes held a manic glint that sent a chill through her bones. "Get away from him," Maya shouted, her voice strained, desperately trying to build the courage that felt so elusive. "Trust me," Blake yelled back as he kicked out at the intruder, narrowly missing a brutal punch aimed straight at his head. The sheer force of the struggle sent another agent crashing against the wall. The scene was chaos embodied. Bodies were colliding, and adrenaline was coursing through every ounce of her being. She could barely think, but something deep within her screamed that she had to keep moving. DeMarco surged to her side, his expression grim. "We need to get out now." He tugged her toward the door, but her eyes were locked onto Blake. The sight of him fighting had her torn. "Not without him," she protested, her voice breaking under the weight of fear and loyalty. It felt like the world was closing in, leaving her with a fateful choice: to abandon the one person she had begun to trust, or to face the shadows lurking just beyond the door. "Blake, we have to," but her words were cut off as the first intruder surged back into the action, swinging wildly at an agent trying to pin him down. He landed a punch that sent the agent sprawling, then dove toward Maya like a predator, and just when everything felt lost, Blake seized the moment, throwing himself back into the fight. "Run," he rasped, his voice hoarse with exertion, anguish flickering across his face. Maya's heart twisted painfully. Was this truly the man she shared laughter and secrets with? Or was he hiding a darkness she hadn't seen? "What game are you playing, Blake?" The words spilled out of her, the accusation heavy with confusion. If there was a truth she hadn't known about him, now wasn't the time. "Just tell me the truth. What does he mean?" "Stay focused," DeMarco barked, but she couldn't pull her eyes away from Blake. The urgency in his gaze cut like a blade. It held a danger of its own. Tension hung thick in the air, mingling with her doubts as she bit her lip, questioning everything. The chaotic fight around her felt almost surreal, as if it were happening in a vacuum. Then all at once, another shout rang out. "Back up! Get in here!" Maya jumped as the door swung open, and several officers charged in, their uniforms a stark contrast against the scattering chaos. Relief washed over her for just a moment until she heard the familiar grin of the first intruder echo across the room. "Back up? You think they can help you? This is just the beginning." The intruder's mocking laughter slashed through the air, sparking a flash of fear that ignited a fire inside her. It was all unraveling so quickly. No longer merely a shadowy silhouette, he stepped into the light, and she saw the madness swirling in his eyes. "We have to fight together," Blake said suddenly, stepping back toward her, pulling her into a fierce hug that shielded her from the encroaching chaos. "Trust me, just this once." Maya's heart raced. The sirens wailed outside, but inside, everything spiraled towards an impending climax. Her mind reeled. Could she really trust him? Before she could respond, the first intruder surged once more, breaking free of the agents who had finally managed to surround him. The struggle left Blake breathless and vulnerable. "Go," he yelled, and this time it wasn't a plea, it was a demand. Her instincts kicked in. She turned. A way out was just ahead, but in the moment of her hesitation, they locked eyes once again, an unspoken thread weaving their spirits together. She had to choose, right here, right now, to flee into the unknown or to fight alongside him. As she made her decision, the world plunged deeper into chaos, and the weight of the truth hung heavy in the air. What was waiting for them on the other side? The shadows seemed to laugh as she lunged forward, unsure of the hand she was dealt. Would the answers they sought lead to salvation or their doom? Maya sprinted towards the door, her heart thumping wildly in her chest. Behind her, she heard the clash of bodies, the grunts of exertion, but she couldn't afford to look back. The instinct to flee burned fiercely within her, propelling her forward. DeMarco was hot on her heels as she pushed through the crowd of officers, all seemingly frozen in shock. "Focus, Maya," DeMarco urged, his voice slicing through the adrenaline haze. "We need to regroup. Now." She could barely process his words. The world around her felt like a whirlwind. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Blake still grappling with the intruder. He was giving it everything he had, yet the madness was too much, the threat too great. The chaos spun around her, and for a moment, doubt gripped her heart like a vice. Was she doing the right thing? "Blake!" she screamed, straining to see him amidst the chaos. His eyes darted to hers, a silent plea etched across his face. But the struggle continued to consume him, like a terrible shadow he could not escape. "Go," he roared with raw desperation, pulling himself back into the fray just as another officer fell beside him. The thud echoed in her soul. With resolve hardening in her chest, Maya pivoted back towards the fray and darted toward Blake. DeMarco hissed a curse, grabbing her wrist. "What are you doing? We have to get out. I can't leave him," she shouted back, tearing her arm from his grip. She couldn't abandon Blake like this, not after everything, not now. The strands of chaos began to weave into clarity. She could see the intruder's wild eyes spinning with an unnerving excitement, as if feeding off the turmoil. Fear ignited in her veins. "Help him," she cried out to the nearest officer, but the man was fixated on maintaining control over the melee, his gun drawn yet shaky in his hands. "Get the hell back." The officer barked back, but it was too late. Blake suddenly stumbled, the second intruder delivering a punch that sent him careening toward Maya. She caught him, and for a brief moment, time froze. "Blake," she breathed, clutching onto him as if their lives depended on it. This was a man she'd fought for, shared secrets with, feelings she had never known she'd bear. "Listen to me," he grunted, pain etched across his features. "We have to." The first intruder lunged again, breaking their moment, and desperation surged through her. Without thinking, she picked up a fallen chair. With a wild swing, she smashed it down upon the assailant's back, causing him to stagger. "Go," Blake shouted again as he pushed himself up. "We can't hold them off. They're overwhelming us." Her hands trembled, a cocktail of fear and sudden power coursing through her. "I want to leave you," the intruder screamed, anger boiling as the officer fumbled to stabilize the chaos. Yet she saw him grasping for control amidst the spiraling fear. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated throughout the room, shifting everyone's focus for just a heartbeat. "Help! Help!" a voice shouted. It was an officer lying on the ground, struggling to pull himself up, panicked and struggling against the tide of chaos. "All units, we need backup immediately," urged another officer, the weight of the situation crashing painfully in with every word. In that moment, Maya's pulse raced faster than ever. Was it possible? Could she use this moment to turn the tide? "Blake," she shouted, trying to cut through the din. "If we pull together, we can." But then the front door swung open, and a new figure stepped in, clad in a dark uniform, badge glinting under the lights. The room shifted again, their way out suddenly teetering on an edge of uncertainty. "Who are you?" one of the agents demanded, the tension palpable. And then she recognized him. A man who had haunted Blake's past. A billionaire whose name slipped through the cracks of her memory. What was he doing here? The chaos paused, a heartbeat suspended in urgency. Maya's instinct sent chills racing down her spine. "Why are you here?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the haze, battling a flood of urgency with an even heavier accusation. The smile that broke across his face told her everything she needed to know. "Maya," he said, his voice smooth yet dripping with menace. "I've come to collect." A pulse of dread washed over her. What did he want? As the world around her tumbled deeper into chaos, she realized the fight was only beginning. Would they stand their ground, or be forever shackled to the darkness of their past? The figure stepped further into the chaos, his eyes glinting with a mix of amusement and something darker. Maya's stomach twisted. The tension in the room shifted, a collective breath held tightly in throats. The officers surrounding her tensed, drawing their weapons, but Blake managed to straighten up beside her, gritting his teeth against the pain. "What have you done, Leland?" he growled, fury boiling in his voice. The name hit Maya like a cold wave. Leland. The man was as notorious as he was wealthy, a ghost from Blake's past rising into their present like a fog that wouldn't lift. "Me? I'm just here for a little reunion," Leland cooed, his smile widening. "Nothing like a good show to break the ice." Maya barely heard his words amidst the shrieking sirens and shouts surrounding them. The remaining officers rallied, forming a semicircle in a feeble attempt to combat the chaos. She could see the fear mirrored in their eyes, the uncertainty creeping in like shadows. Were they ready for this? "Get down," DeMarco barked, moving to her side, but every instinct in Maya screamed to hold her ground. She couldn't let himself be intimidated any longer. "You're making a mistake, Leland," Blake warned, taking a step forward, fists clenched, scars of the past stark on his skin. "You don't want to do this." But Leland just chuckled, unfazed. "I am not the one making mistakes here, Blake. You and your little allies are standing in the way of what is rightfully mine." With each smug word, Maya's heart thundered louder. It felt as if Leland were a puppet master, strings attached to every nerve in the room. Every officer's hesitation fed his arrogance. What terrible secret did he want to reclaim? "Your business is with Blake, not us," another officer shouted, his gun trained on Leland. "Stand down now, or we will shoot." The billionaire dismissed the officer as if swatting an annoying fly. "Oh, I wouldn't do that if I were you," he taunted, glancing at the intruders still looming around. "You really think you understand what is going on?" Maya's eyes darted to the men still wrestling, disoriented in their own fight, completely unaware of the brewing storm at the heart of the room. They needed a plan fast. Adrenaline surged through her veins. She had to act before it was too late. "Blake," she shouted, heart racing. "What if we get the others and push them toward that exit?" "We can absolutely not." DeMarco interjected, his voice tense. "We can't let them regroup. It's too dangerous." "I don't care." Maya snapped, fear mingling with determination. She had fought too hard to let anyone else decide for her. "We need to take that chance." "Enough." Leland's voice boomed, cutting through the tension, replacing their blood with ice. "This is your final warning, Blake. Hand over what I want, and I'll spare your friends. Hold out, and they'll regret standing in my way." Panic surged, but Maya's fists clenched. "What do you want?" she demanded, desperation leaking into the edges of her voice. Leland stepped closer, eyes gleaming with malevolence. "It's simple, really. I just want my family's legacy back." A deep silence enveloped them, the implication heavy in the air. Maya's mind raced. What was this legacy? What darkness lurked just beneath the surface? She couldn't let doubt creep in. They needed to fight a fight through the chaos that would lead them into the light. A sudden crash shattered the moment, security doors erupting open as officers flooded in, weapons drawn. Leland's gaze shifted, a flicker of irritation breaking through his calm. "No," Maya screamed, awareness dawning that this might be their only shot. "We have to move now." But Blake shook his head fiercely. "We're not leaving them." As the struggle ramped up again, Maya knew she was standing at a crossroads. Would they fight for their lives, or would Leland's grip on Blake's past pull them under? Her heart raced, fear clashing with a brave ambition. The moment grew fragile, ready to snap. What decision would they make? Teetering on the edge of chaos. The tension exploded as Leland's laughter filled the room, a grotesque sound that ignited a firestorm of chaos. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. She locked eyes with Blake, who stood defiantly but visibly strained. She sensed the clock ticking, the weight of Leland's threat hanging over them like a guillotine. Now, she shouted again, more insistently this time. If we don't go now, we'll lose him. The officers were a flurry of movement, some distracted by Leland, others struggling to maintain order amid the growing pandemonium. This wasn't just about Blake anymore. It was about survival for everyone present. But how could they mobilize in the chaos? Maya's instincts kicked in as she gripped Blake's arm tighter, her desperation fueling her resolve. Listen to me, Blake. We can't let him have what he wants. He is not just going to walk away. The urgency sharpened her voice, but Blake's eyes darkened, and he shook his head. What if he is bluffing? If we give him what he is after, then we put every one of those officers at risk. You've seen how he operates. The fire in her voice surprised even her. Leland stepped closer, amusement dancing in his eyes. Oh, they're all expendable, Blake. But you? You are the key to everything. I will take what is mine, even if I have to start with your friends. Enough games. A seasoned officer yelled, stepping up, gun aimed straight at Leland. The room stilled, anticipation electric in the air. You've got 5 seconds to tell us what you really want before we take you down. Leland didn't flinch. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, the flush of danger morphing into a devilish grin. What I want, officer, is history. My family has been wronged, and it's time for justice. Maya barely registered the man's words. All she could focus on was the growing energy, a whirlwind of uncertainty swirling as both sides calculated their next moves. She felt fear deep in her gut. It was a weight that threatened to drag her under. Blake, she whispered urgently as her eyes darted to the exits. If we don't get out of here now, it's too late for escape. Leland interjected, his voice dripping with ice. Without warning, Leland snapped his fingers. The door behind him swung open, revealing a small group of men clad in black, their expressions masked, determination radiating from their postures. Maya's pulse quickened when she recognized the threat. Get your backs. We can't let them flank us. DeMarco shouted, positioning himself defensively, but it was too late. The air rippled with the tension of a coiled spring about to snap. Maya made her decision. She acted on pure instinct, dislodging Blake's grasp only for a frenzied moment to sprint towards the nearest officer. Her feet pounded against the floor, each step propelling her further into the storm. Go, she shouted to the bewildered officers. Push. Now. And as if caught in her surge of adrenaline, those around her responded, moving with a newfound purpose, positioning themselves around her, weapons raised. But in that split second, everything changed. Bang! A shot rang out, echoing like thunder through the fray. Maya felt her heart stop. A figure clad in black spun backward, the force of the bullet knocking him off balance. The world erupted in chaos, shouts, cries, and the smell of gunpowder filled the air as bullets ricocheted. In the midst of it all, she found herself eyeing Leland, who stood oddly calm, a glimmer of excitement in his eyes. It was as if he thrived on the chaos he had unleashed. Finish it, Leland commanded, eyes locked on Blake, taunting just as a wolf might taunt a cornered deer. Maya glanced at Blake, whose expression transformed from fury to something darker, an ancient rage emanating from within him. In that brief moment, Maya understood. It was what Leland had hoped for, a catalyst to unleash hell. Blake, she screamed, reaching out as he stepped towards Leland, driven by a force that felt no mercy, but she couldn't let him fall into that abyss. She raced forward, pushing against every instinct that screamed to flee. The urgency pulsated around her. Drawing closer as she shouted again, we can't let him win. But the moment fractured as Leland's laughter echoed through the violence, and Maya's world flashed one choice lingering in the air, one decision that could alter everything. Would they be consumed by the dark legacy Leland craved, or would they rise together, united against the looming threat? The stakes had never been higher, and the answers lay in the chaos surrounding them. The gunfire was an animalistic roar, slicing through the room like a knife. Maya felt the wind of a bullet whistle past her ear. Adrenaline surged through her veins, and she propelled herself forward with the force of pure instinct. Suddenly, the chaos seemed to part like a curtain, revealing the heart of the storm. Blake's face was a mask of fury. He was moving toward Leland, but she could see the conflict brewing behind his eyes. This wasn't just about Leland's provocations. It was about everything they had fought against, everything Leland represented. She was losing both him and herself in the whirlpool of violence. "Blake!" She cried one last time, desperation thick in her voice, but the sound was swallowed by the weapon fire erupting around them. Leland's laughter echoed again, mocking and cruel. "You've really forgotten how this game is played, haven't you?" he taunted. Just then, Maya collided with an officer, DeMarco. "We need to push him back," she shouted, breathless, glaring toward the rising tide of masked men. "I'm with you," DeMarco replied, and together they sprang into action. They formed a line, weapons braced, eyes scanning the chaos for any advantage. Maya could feel her heart racing, pounding a deafening rhythm against her chest as she stood her ground. But Leland wasn't done. With a flick of his wrist, he signaled his men forward. They surged, a tide of black clothing and lethal intent, and Maya's stomach knotted as their faces remained shrouded in protection, hinting at the brutality they were hired to unleash. "Fight! Everybody, we fight!" Maya yelled, resolve shimmering in the chaos. She couldn't let fear overwhelm her. They had to hold their ground as they clashed. She could almost hear the bullets whizzing like angry bees. An officer fell nearby, a cry snatched from his lips before he hit the ground. A piercing gasp escaped Maya, and she instinctively crouched down, the horror anchoring her feet, pushing against her will to move. "Get a medkit," she shouted, but the din drowned her out. The fight propelled her forward. There was no retreating now. A jagged shout broke through the chaos, a warning, perhaps. She turned, seeing Blake locked in confrontation, preparing to swing at Leland. Blake's eyes met hers, a fleeting moment of understanding, but it was stretched thin. There was so much at stake. "Don't," she pleaded silently, but he was beyond her reach. Leland sneered, a predator relishing in his prey's moment of vulnerability. "Do it, Blake. Show them what true power feels like," he shouted, his voice a knife that scraped against her very soul. Maya surged forward, fueled by an instinct deeper than fear. She had to stop him. Blake's next move could cost them everything. But just as she reached out, a heavy body crashed into her from the side, sprawling her to the ground. Pain shot through her shoulder as she hit the floor, breath knocked from her lungs. She squinted through the haze of chaos, heart racing, scanning for Blake. Anguish gripped her instinctively when she saw him, fists raised, his decision teetering on the edge of violence. It was not just Blake's life at stake, but also their chance of standing against Leland's tyranny. "Blake!" Maya yelled, fighting against the weight of her attacker, a nameless figure shrouded in black. "Don't do it. We can end this together." Fear surged through her. What if he gave in? What if Leland's chaos swallowed him whole? Just as Blake's fist came crashing down, the world seemed to slow, every heartbeat echoing in her ears. Then, the ground under Maya trembled, a fierce explosion ripping through the area, sending debris flying as chaos erupted again. Maya's eyes widened in horror. This wasn't over yet. It had only just begun, and in that instantaneous moment where time stood still, she realized sometimes the hardest fight is for those we love. But as the smoke cleared and shadows danced in the remnants of violence, who would be left standing when it all came to an end? The dust settled slowly, and an eerie silence blanketed the room. Maya blinked, the world around her coming back into focus. The chaos remained vivid in her mind, but now she felt the heavy weight of stillness hanging over them. Had they won, or was this merely a twisted reprieve? Blake lay sprawled on the floor, his forehead glistening with sweat, bruises painting his skin with alarming clarity. He appeared dazed but alive, and her heart surged with relief. Agent DeMarco stood nearby, barking orders into his radio, his focus sharp. Backup had arrived, but what now? What more could they endure? Maya crawled toward Blake, urgency fueling her movements. "Blake, are you okay?" Her voice broke the tense silence as she reached for him, her hand trembling that he groaned, pushing himself up. Fear and confusion swirled in his eyes, but there was resolution too. Maya, he rasped, we need to move Leland one T-stop. His words were laced with desperation, but his gaze held something fierce, a refusal to back down. The door swung open again, framing the scene in a harsh spotlight as more agents stormed the room. Each pair of eyes surveyed the remnants of chaos, assessing threats with practiced focus. Leland's men weren't just facing a fight. They were facing justice, an avalanche of consequences crashing down. Maya's stomach twisted at the thought of Leland. Where was he? The knowledge that he was still out there, lurking like a phantom waiting to pounce, sent icy shivers down her spine. What if he comes back? She whispered, fear curling around her words. He will, Blake said, a grim certainty in his voice. We can't let him. Not now. Together they slowly stood, their bodies still trembling from the adrenaline of the fight. DeMarco finished his call, eyes scanning the room, and then swung toward them, voice steadying. We'll protect you both. But we have to regroup, analyze the whole situation. Right now, Leland is the least of our worries. Least of our worries. Maya gasped, her heart racing. He after Blake. He won't stop until he gets what he wants. Exactly, DeMarco nodded sharply, and that's why we need to get ahead of him. We'll find out what he's planning. He's always 3 steps ahead. We've seen how this plays out, he said, his voice clear and unwavering. But it ends here. Blake grabbed Maya's hand, grounding her amid the swirling storm of uncertainty. Maya, listen. We have to band together. Whatever comes next, we face it together. No more secrets. His eyes held hers with unwavering intensity, the connection they forged in chaos screaming for resolution. I need you by my side. Maya swallowed hard, the air thick with tension and a mixture of hope and fear. What if it's dangerous? Every day we live is dangerous. Love is dangerous, but it's worth fighting for. Blake's grip tightened, his resolve igniting a fire in her, whispering that they could battle these shadows together. Outside the window, dawn began to break, soft hues of orange and pink pushing away the dark. The world was waking up, a new day dawning, and with it came the sentiment that maybe, just maybe, they could write their own future, one that didn't include shadows tainted by betrayal. The sudden realization washed over her, a sense of freedom paired with danger, an uncharted road ahead. Okay, she said firmly, a newfound determination washing over her. We'll do this. Together. As officers began to mobilize, organizing the scene, a sense of camaraderie wrapped around them. DeMarco brought them to the forefront, stress evident on his face. We need to go over everything: evidence, contacts, the works. You two are integral. We move as a unit. Maya and Blake shared a look, one of understanding and loyalty. It was here, amid the remnants of despair, in a world that felt utterly uncertain, that they found strength in one another. With the dawn looming over the horizon, they stepped together into the light, their bond unbreakable. The fight wasn't over, but they were ready. They chose to fight, to trust each other, and to uncover the truths that lay behind the veil of chaos. As the sun pierced through the fog, so too did their resolve. For Blake, for Maya, and for the uncertain path ahead, they had each other. Now, as the new day unfolded before them, they prepared to face it all. And you need to prepare for what's next. Don't forget to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that come your way. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. We want to hear your reactions. Flood the comments section now with your theories about this intense ending. And for the love of stories, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Real fans understand how important your support is for the channel.